What if the reason love feels so difficult isn't bad luck, but something hidden deep within you? Something shaping your relationships without you even realizing it? Have you ever given your all to someone, only to feel unseen, unappreciated, or like your love was never enough? Why do some people attract love effortlessly while others struggle to receive even the smallest bit of affection? If you've ever wondered this, know that the answer isn't luck or fate. It's something far more powerful. Stick around until the end to uncover what's truly keeping love at a distance. Love is one of the most powerful forces in human life, yet for so many, it feels elusive, painful, or just out of reach. If you've ever wondered why you keep experiencing the same heartbreak, attracting the same kind of partner, or feeling unfulfilled in relationships, the answer lies not in fate, but in a pattern, one that you unconsciously repeat. And until you recognize it for what it is, it will continue to shape your experiences, making you believe that love is something you have to chase, earn, or prove yourself worthy of. But today, that changes, because once you see what's really happening beneath the surface, you'll never see love the same way again. This insight, rooted in the wisdom of Joe Dispenza, has the power to transform not just your relationships, but how you see yourself. And trust me, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, if you're ready to break free from the cycle of emotional pain, stay with me. Now let's get started. One of the first signs that someone may have unresolved emotions toward you, whether positive or negative, is how they unconsciously mirror your actions. Joe Dispenza once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But what if fate isn't something written in the stars, but rather a pattern you unknowingly repeat? The way you view yourself sets the tone for every relationship you enter. If your internal narrative tells you that you're not enough, your energy begins to broadcast that belief. And energy doesn't lie, it communicates faster than words ever can. According to Dispenza's research, the electromagnetic field around our body, especially the heart and brain, constantly broadcasts our emotional states. That means your fear of abandonment, your craving for approval, and your hidden feelings of inadequacy are all being silently transmitted and received. If you constantly feel overlooked in relationships, if love always seems just beyond your grasp, or if you find yourself chasing after people who never fully reciprocate your feelings, it's not just bad luck. It's not random. Every person you attract into your life is a reflection of something deeper, something within you that remains unresolved. The truth is, people don't just treat you a certain way by chance. They mirror the way you see yourself. If deep down you believe you're unworthy of love, you will unconsciously seek out people who reinforce that belief. If you fear being abandoned, you will be drawn to emotionally unavailable partners who keep you in a state of uncertainty. If you crave validation, you will attract those who withhold it, making you chase it endlessly. Dispenza explains that our thoughts, when repeated over time, become beliefs. Those beliefs create emotional states, and those states generate the energetic signals we emit. So if you're constantly thinking, "People always leave me," you'll feel the emotions of loss and loneliness. That energy will project outward and attract people and situations that validate it. Not because you're cursed, but because you're energetically aligned with that story. But here's the most important shift you need to make. Instead of asking, "Why do people treat me like this?" ask yourself, "What is this situation revealing about me?" Because until you change the way you see yourself, the world around you will keep reflecting the same painful reality back at you. The cycle won't break until you do. Every relationship, every heartbreak, every person who didn't see your worth, they're not just detours, they're mirrors. They show you what you still believe about yourself. And if you keep attracting people who don't choose you, it's time to look inward, because somewhere along the line, you stopped choosing yourself. Dispenza encourages people to break this cycle by changing their energy first, not by trying harder to make others love them, but by becoming someone who radiates love from within. This is not about faking confidence or forcing positivity. It's about reprogramming your subconscious mind. where all your stories and emotional patterns are stored. He often speaks about entering a meditative state to bypass the analytical mind and access the subconscious. When you're in that calm, focused state, you can plant new beliefs. You can visualize yourself as already whole, already loved, already enough. And the more you feel that truth emotionally, the more your brain and body begin to accept it as your new normal. From that space, you no longer seek relationships out of neediness, fear, or insecurity. You're no longer trying to be chosen, you've already chosen yourself. You don't chase love, you become it. That shift alone will change what you attract. Because when your energy says, I am whole, you'll no longer tolerate what feels empty. Think back on your past relationships. Was there a recurring theme? Maybe it was people who kept you waiting, who made you doubt your worth, who loved you in fragments. They weren't the problem. They were the proof. Proof of a story you were still telling yourself. A story that said, I'm hard to love. But what if that story isn't true anymore? Dispenza's work shows that when you change your personal reality, your beliefs, your emotions, your energy, you start attracting a new external reality. Love becomes less about finding the perfect person and more about becoming the kind of person who no longer settles for less than what they deserve. That's why healing isn't about finding closure from someone else. It's about closing the chapter within yourself where you believed you weren't enough. Once that chapter ends, you stop repeating it. You stop inviting the same story with different faces. You stop being a magnet for pain. The next time you're triggered in a relationship, pause. Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me about how I see myself? Use it as a moment of awareness, not self-blame. Because the second you become aware of the pattern, you're no longer trapped by it. And in that awareness lies your freedom. Love is not something to chase, it's something to allow. And to allow it, you must first believe you're worthy of it. Not because someone else said so, but because you finally said it to yourself. When you start treating yourself the way you wish others would treat you, with care, respect, and honesty, you raise your energetic frequency. You stop begging for crumbs and start expecting the feast. This isn't about becoming cold or guarded, it's about becoming clear. Clear about what you want, what you deserve, and what you're no longer available for. That clarity becomes your new vibration. And the universe always responds to your vibration, not your words. Another pattern that keeps people stuck in unhealthy relationships is when partners pull away at unexpected moments. Love should never feel like something you have to earn. It's not a prize for good behavior or a reward for being perfect. And yet, so many of us were conditioned to believe exactly that. Think back to your childhood. How was love given to you? Was it freely offered, or did it come with conditions? I love you if you behave. I'm proud of you if you get good grades. You're worthy if you meet my expectations. These messages may have seemed small, but over time they planted a dangerous belief deep within your subconscious. Love is not freely given, it must be deserved. And so, without realizing it, you carry this belief into adulthood. You find yourself bending, pleasing, proving, trying to be everything for everyone, just to feel wanted. You stay in relationships where you overextend yourself, always nurturing, always giving, always afraid that if you stop trying, love will disappear. And that's the trap. Real love cannot be earned through effort. If deep down you believe you must work for love, the world will keep confirming that belief. You will attract people who make you feel like you're never enough. Partners who take without giving, who keep you chasing, who reinforce the idea that love is something you must fight for. But here's the truth. The moment you stop proving your worth is the moment you become truly free. This is why so many people feel unloved, not because love isn't available to them, but because they are searching for it in all the wrong places. When you believe that love must be earned, you're more likely to tolerate emotional unavailability, inconsistency, or even manipulation, because deep inside, you assume it's your job to fix it. You interpret withdrawal as a test you need to pass, instead of recognizing it as a red flag. You might think, if I can just love them harder, they'll stay. But people who genuinely care for you won't make you question whether you're enough. They won't disappear when you're most vulnerable or make their affection conditional upon your performance. This belief system also shows up in subtle ways, like feeling uncomfortable when someone treats you well. Compliments make you squirm. Gifts make you feel guilty. You might even start pulling away from people who offer consistent kindness because it feels unfamiliar or unearned. Your nervous system has adapted to chaos and confusion, so stability feels unsafe. That's not because something is wrong with you, it's because somewhere along the way, your definition of love got tangled up with fear and scarcity. Healing starts with self-awareness. The moment you recognize that you're chasing after love because you were taught it doesn't come freely, everything begins to shift. You start noticing which people drain you and which ones nourish you. You begin to understand that being available to everyone all the time is not love, it's self-abandonment. And slowly, you start creating boundaries that protect your peace instead of sacrificing it to feel needed. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment of stillness to realize how much noise you've been tolerating. Silence often reveals what effort was trying to mask. If you have to constantly prove yourself, explain your value, or earn attention, it's not love, it's a performance. And the audience you're performing for may never applaud, no matter how hard you try. That's when it becomes crucial to step back and ask, am I loved for who I am or for what I do? Some people reveal their true feelings through playful teasing and unusual jokes. They make seemingly harmless comments that, upon deeper reflection, carry an undercurrent of truth. These jokes often serve as a way to test boundaries, to express something they don't feel comfortable saying outright. If someone constantly teases you about something you're sensitive about, whether it's your ambitions, your insecurities, or your past, it might not be as innocent as it seems. The way people joke about you often reveals how they truly see you, and sometimes these moments of laughter are where resentment, jealousy, or even hidden affection slip through. Pay attention to these small moments because they often carry the biggest clues about a person's unspoken emotions. It's not just the content of the joke that matters, it's the consistency. If someone repeatedly targets the same part of you with sarcasm or just kidding comments, it might be masking something deeper. Are they threatened by your success? Are they uncomfortable with your confidence? Or are they trying to subtly shape your self-image? Not all teasing is playful. Some of it is strategic, disguised as humor to avoid accountability. In some cases, these jokes are breadcrumbs left by people who don't know how to communicate vulnerability. Rather than saying, I feel intimidated by your ambition, they joke about how you're always chasing something. Instead of expressing jealousy directly, they tease your choices. This form of emotional camouflage is often overlooked, but if you listen closely, people tell you exactly who they are, even when they're laughing. It's also important to examine your own reactions. Do you laugh along just to avoid conflict? Do you brush off discomfort because you don't want to seem too sensitive? That, too, is a learned response, one rooted in the fear of being too much. But being emotionally aware doesn't make you weak or overly dramatic. It makes you conscious, and that consciousness is what helps you set standards for how you want to be treated. Emotional safety isn't just about what people say, it's about how they make you feel over time. If someone leaves you constantly second-guessing your worth, if their words sting even when they're smiling, if you feel more anxious than assured around them, it's worth paying attention. The way people joke, the way they withdraw, the way they respond when you stop trying, these are all patterns, and patterns don't lie. Letting go of these dynamics often means grieving the version of you that tolerated them. You might feel sadness, guilt, or even fear as you walk away from relationships where you once poured everything in. But on the other side of that grief is a deeper peace, a kind of inner clarity that reminds you that you were never hard to love. You were just loving in environments that didn't know how to hold you. When you stop proving your worth, when you stop chasing after validation disguised as connection, you open yourself up to something better. Love that feels safe, consistent, and whole. And that kind of love never asks you to shrink, bend, or perform. It simply asks you to be. Another revealing sign of hidden emotions is when someone remembers details about you that you've forgotten. This goes beyond basic memory. It's about what they choose to hold on to. If someone who claims to be indifferent toward you recalls specific dates, small conversations, or minor details from your life, it means they are paying more attention to you than they let on. People remember what matters to them. If someone remembers things about you that even you have forgotten, it's a sign that you occupy a larger space in their thoughts than they admit. The human brain filters out thousands of moments every day. So, when someone holds on to something small, like your favorite snack, a story you told once in passing, or the name of a childhood pet, it means that detail stuck with them for a reason. Those little pieces become anchors, especially for people who aren't great at expressing emotion. They may not say much, but their memory becomes a quiet confession. You may think they don't care, but they do, deeply. Sometimes the people who act the most distant are the ones who observe the most. They might pretend not to notice changes in your mood or appearance, but they do. They might not comment on your new haircut or the way your tone shifts when you're tired, but internally, they register everything. Their silence doesn't mean disinterest. Often, it's protection, because caring openly can feel vulnerable, and vulnerability can feel dangerous when they've been hurt before. And then there's the classic pattern of emotional push and pull. The moment you start to pull away, they suddenly show interest again. This is one of the clearest signs of someone who is emotionally conflicted about you. They might distance themselves when they feel you're too close, but the second they sense you losing interest, they come back, as if pulled by an invisible force. This behavior isn't necessarily malicious. It often stems from their own unresolved fears. They may struggle with intimacy, fearing that getting too close will lead to vulnerability and pain. But at the same time, they can't let go completely because they also fear losing you. The result is a frustrating cycle where you never truly know where you stand. One day they're warm and affectionate, the next they're distant and cold. This unpredictability creates an emotional high-low pattern that can be addictive, making you crave their attention even more. But the truth is, real love doesn't feel like a guessing game. So, how do you break free from these patterns? The first step is awareness, recognizing that these cycles are not random, but a reflection of deeper beliefs you hold about love, worth, and security. Awareness is powerful, but it's not always comfortable. Once you start recognizing these patterns, it can be unsettling to realize how much of your life has been shaped by outdated beliefs. You might look back at past relationships and see how often you accepted less than you deserved, not because you lacked intelligence or strength, but because you were operating from a place of subconscious fear. This realization is not meant to cause regret, but to empower you. Every painful interaction, every moment of self-doubt becomes a clue, a piece of the puzzle helping you understand what still needs to be healed within. You begin to see that these recurring patterns aren't punishments, they're invitations to finally choose differently. The next step is transformation. Instead of seeking love as something external, cultivate it within yourself. Heal the parts of you that feel unworthy, abandoned, or unseen. Understand that real love is not about proving, chasing, or earning. It's about being. And when you truly embody this, the people and relationships that enter your life will reflect this new, healthier reality. Healing these parts of yourself isn't a linear journey. It often involves revisiting memories you thought you had moved past, times you were rejected, dismissed, or emotionally neglected. These wounds tend to live in the body, shaping how you respond to conflict, closeness, and emotional intimacy. Maybe you freeze when someone gets too close, or you overextend yourself when someone pulls away. These behaviors aren't flaws, they're protective strategies that once kept you safe. But as you grow, you get to choose new ways of being. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of fleeing from it. You learn that boundaries are not walls, but bridges to healthy connection. And most importantly, you learn that your worth was never in question. It was only buried beneath layers of doubt and fear. People often look outside themselves, searching for someone to fill the emptiness they feel inside. But the truth is, love, or the lack of it, has always come from within. The way love is experienced in relationships is a direct reflection of what is happening internally. This inner emptiness isn't a flaw. It's often a result of emotional neglect or inconsistency experienced early in life. When affection was given conditionally, or when emotional needs were unmet, a person might grow up believing that love must be earned or fought for. This internal void creates an almost magnetic pull toward people who replicate that early dynamic. You may not consciously realize it, but your nervous system is drawn to the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. That's why healthy relationships can sometimes feel boring at first, because your inner world is used to chaos, inconsistency, or emotional highs and lows. True healing begins when you stop searching for someone else to complete you and instead focus on giving yourself the love you've been craving. Dispenza spoke of the shadow, the hidden parts of the self that remain unacknowledged, suppressed, or feared. This shadow consists of insecurities that are buried, emotions that are pushed down, and fears that are silenced. These shadow aspects don't disappear just because we ignore them. In fact, they become louder in our relationships. You might find yourself overreacting to small issues, projecting your insecurities onto your partner, or interpreting neutral behavior as rejection. These aren't signs that you're broken, they're signals that there's still a part of you that's yearning to be seen, accepted, and loved. Integrating the shadow isn't about becoming perfect, it's about being honest with yourself. It's saying, yes, I feel jealous sometimes. Yes, I fear abandonment. Yes, I want to be loved so badly that I sometimes lose myself. And in that honesty, there is freedom. Because when you stop hiding from yourself, you stop needing others to validate the parts you've disowned. Over time, these aspects become locked away because they were once believed to be weaknesses, something that made a person unworthy or unlovable. But suppressing the shadow does not eliminate it. Instead, it creates an internal battle that plays out in real life, especially in relationships. Love from others will always be limited by the walls built around the self. If vulnerability is hidden, connections will form with people who dismiss sensitivity, reinforcing the belief that it is something to be ashamed of. If rejection is feared, relationships will arise with those who never provide certainty, mirroring an internal struggle to accept oneself fully. If abandonment is a deep-rooted fear, life will continue to create situations that trigger that fear, keeping emotional security out of reach. The most painful experiences are not random acts of cruelty from the universe. They are reflections, showing exactly what still needs to be healed. Love can only be received to the extent that it is allowed. Most people spend their lives searching for love, believing they need to earn it, prove they deserve it, or chase after those who withhold it. But love is not a reward for perfection. It is not something that must be fought for. The struggle many people face in love has nothing to do with its rarity and everything to do with an inability to receive it. The only way to change this cycle is to stop rejecting the self. The love received from others will never exceed the love given to oneself. If there is an underlying belief of unworthiness, people who reinforce that belief will naturally be drawn in. But when every part of the self is accepted, the flaws, the insecurities, the mistakes, relationships will no longer be shaped by self-rejection. There will be no need to settle, to chase, or to prove anything. Instead, love will be allowed to flow freely. True love starts within. This means recognizing that your self-worth is not contingent on how others perceive you or how they choose to treat you. When your internal sense of value is intact, you no longer feel the need to chase approval or validation. Instead, relationships become a reflection of the love you already carry for yourself. When you love yourself unconditionally, it becomes easier to accept love from others without fear, doubt, or suspicion. There's no longer a need to settle for anything less than what you deserve because you know your worth is intrinsic and unshakable. The search for love shifts from an anxious pursuit to a peaceful acceptance of what's already within. Patterns in relationships do not appear by accident. If love has repeatedly felt distant or conditional, if relationships have consistently left feelings of being overlooked or unappreciated, then it is time to examine the deeper story that has been playing out. The problem is not the people who come and go, it is the belief system that has been carried for years. No matter how much love is searched for externally, it will never surpass the love given internally. These patterns you observe in your relationships aren't random. They are reflections of the stories you've been telling yourself about who you are and what you deserve. The way you've been treated by others or the way you've allowed yourself to be treated is directly tied to the relationship you have with yourself. If you believe deep down that you're not worthy of genuine love, or if you carry shame about who you are, you will continually attract people who mirror those beliefs. These external experiences only reinforce the internal narrative of unworthiness, creating a vicious cycle. Breaking free from this means doing the internal work first, challenging those beliefs, healing the wounds, and learning to give yourself the love you've been seeking. Until that happens, the external world will continue to reflect the old story. Many people long for unconditional love from others, yet fail to give it to themselves. Without demanding perfection, without conditions, without constantly trying to prove worthiness. Have you ever given yourself that kind of love? If you're really ready to start, comment self-love below. Self-love isn't a reward for perfection. It isn't about getting everything right or always being the best version of yourself. It's about acceptance. It's about embracing your humanity, your mistakes, your imperfections, your flaws, and still deciding to show up for yourself. It's about being gentle when you stumble and supportive when you feel weak. The love you seek from others will only mirror the love you already give yourself. It's easy to demand unconditional love from others, but the real work starts when you decide to offer it to yourself. When you do this, everything shifts. You stop chasing love in ways that drain you, and you begin attracting relationships that reflect the truth of who you are, whole, worthy, and deserving of love. The moment love stops being begged for, it begins to flow effortlessly, and that changes everything. At the heart of healing is one essential truth. Every part of the self must be embraced, including the parts that have been avoided. The emotions that were buried, the fears that were ignored, the insecurities that were silenced, these are not enemies. They are simply parts of the self waiting to be acknowledged. The rejection of these pieces creates a cycle of attracting relationships that reflect the same rejection. But when authenticity is fully embraced, love is no longer something that must be chased. It is freely given by those who truly see and appreciate what is real. One of the biggest misconceptions about love is the belief that it is something to be found, something that exists outside the self, waiting to be given by someone else. But love has never been an external treasure to discover. It is something that is cultivated internally. The more love is poured inward, the less suffering will be experienced in relationships. The more self-worth is recognized, the less tolerance there will be for connections that drain, manipulate, or deplete. The search for love often pushes it further away. Every time it is chased in another person, it is an unconscious attempt to avoid looking within. Every time a relationship is idolized as the solution to loneliness or emptiness, personal power is given away. But love has never been a prize for proving worthiness. It is not a privilege that someone else grants. It is something that has always belonged to the self. And when that truth is lived without conditions, without fear, without the need for approval, everything changes. When we stop searching for love outside ourselves, we stop giving away our power. The more we chase love, the more it seems to elude us, because love isn't something that can be found. It is something that must be experienced from within. Once we stop seeking validation and approval from others, we reclaim our own power. We realize that we don't need someone else to complete us. We are already whole. This realization is transformative. It allows us to experience love in a new way, without fear, without manipulation, and without the need to prove our worth. When love is no longer something we chase, it becomes something we receive effortlessly as a reflection of the love we already have for ourselves. When love is no longer something to be asked for, it begins to be inspired in others. No longer is it something that must be chased. It is something that is recognized everywhere. Love isn't something you find, it's something you create, starting from within. If this helped you, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights on love, energy, and personal growth.